Before we talk about the present, let me take you back to the past. The day, October 18th, 2017. It's a day that's fairly recent, and yet if you're a Yankee fan, that day feels like a lifetime ago. On that day, the New York Yankees won Game 5 of the American League Championship Series against the Houston Astros 5-0 to take a 3-2 series lead. Masahiro Tanaka pitched 7 scoreless innings, gave up only 3 hits, and struck out 8. Greg Bird scored an RBI single in the second that scored Starlin Castro. In the third, Aaron Judge, the Rookie of the Year and MVP candidate, hit a double that brought Brett Gardner home. In the bottom of the fifth, with Chase Headley and Judge on the bases, Gary Sanchez and Didi Gregorius hit back-to-back RBI singles. And then Gary finished the scoring with a home run in the bottom of the seventh. Tommy Kahnle came in to get the final 6 outs of the game. As Alex Bregman lined out to Aaron Hicks to end the game, Yankee fans must have felt like they were on cloud 9. This young rebuilding team was way ahead of schedule. They had just come back from 2-0 to beat the Cleveland Indians in the division series. They had come back from 4 runs the previous night to tie the series, and now the Yankees were 1 win away from their first World Series appearance since 2009. The city of New York was bustling with excitement. This team is going to win the World Series, and even if they don't, they'll win one next year, and then they might win a few more after that with this fantastic young core. Another Yankee dynasty was on the horizon. Everything seemed perfect. In the final episode of The Office, Andy Bernard says, "I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them." Yankee fans had no idea that October 18th, 2017 would be considered the good old days of this Yankee era. You all know what happened after that. The Astros won the next 2 games and went on to win the World Series. In 2018, they won 100 games but lost to the Red Sox in the division series. Boston would go on to win the World Series as well. In 2019, they won the division but once again lost to Houston in the ALCS, this time in even more brutal fashion on a Jose Altuve walk-off home run. In 2020, they had a mediocre season in the COVID-shortened year and lost to Tampa in the ALDS. And then this year, the Yankees had the most painful 92-win season in the history of baseball, which culminated in the Red Sox defeating the Yankees at Fenway in the AL wildcard game. If you're a Yankee fan, you have to be sitting there and wondering, how did it get to this point? What happened that took this team from a guaranteed dynasty to now it looks like their championship window is closed? How did that happen? And of course, yes, they could always win the title next year. They could always turn this around. But do you really have faith in that? Do you look at this team, these players, this ownership, this coaching? Do you really look at it and say that this team is going to be able to fix all their problems next year? Because I don't. There's 100 things that we could point to that led to the destruction of this Yankee team. And I'm sure millions of people have already begun speculating about that and talking about that. I'm just going to focus on this season alone. And this team was just not good. I know that they won 92 games, but you looked at it, they were unbelievably inconsistent. They went through so many stretches this year where they were hot and cold, hot and cold. And that is the byproduct of a team that is not very good. There were so many brutal losses that you will be seeing throughout this video that were, if any one of those games had been finished differently, that game, that wildcard game, would have been at Yankee Stadium, not at Fenway Park. And think about how different that game could have been if that game was at Yankee Stadium and not Fenway Park. And there were just so many tough, excruciating, brutal losses. If you had to pick one, you couldn't. There's the Houston game, the Boston game, any of the Mets games, the Field of Dreams game. There were just so many losses that this team had the game won and for some reason just could not get it done. Whether it was, mostly it was the bullpen, who for the most part the bullpen was good this year, but they blew so many big games that, again, if any one of them were different, that wildcard game could have been in New York. Think about how different that was. Obviously, people have gone on and on about the home run or strikeout mentality that the Yankees have. It doesn't work in the postseason, and I know that it doesn't work in the postseason because I've now seen this for years. Every single year now, it's home run or strikeout, and it ends miserably. It ends with an ALDS knockout or an ALCS knockout or now a wildcard game knockout. And you know what? The way this keeps going, they won't even make the playoffs next year. Look, they went from ALCS to ALDS to wildcard game. Pretty soon, that's going to lead to not making the playoffs at all. It doesn't work. Maybe it works in the regular season, but in the postseason, it is not working. And again, I know this because I've seen it. Brian Cashman cannot tell me that this is a sustainable strategy in the postseason because we've all seen it. It doesn't work. There were other signs of the dysfunctionality of this team. The 131 double plays are the biggest thing. For crying out loud, it felt like every time they had the bases loaded, double play. it was so awful watching this team knowing that they could do that at any given moment. And most often, they did do that at any given moment. That double play that just ripped your heart out, it happened so often this season. So I'm sure that there's recency bias here. I'm sure that there'll be some other fan base that tells me that there is an example more egregious than this, but I can't think of a worse 92-win team than this team. They, throughout so much of the season, looked lost, disinterested. Their offense shut down for multiple games, for multiple stretches against terrible teams. How many times did they lose to the Orioles this year? The Orioles are the worst team in baseball, and they lost to them an egregious number of times. Again, if any one of those games were different, it's a Yankee Stadium wildcard game. For crying out loud, if like half of the brutal losses that we had this year were different, there's a chance we win the division. So as I look ahead here, we wonder, how do we fix this? I think it starts with getting rid of Brian Cashman. Thank you, Brian, for all the success that you've given this team throughout the years. But whatever it is that you do now, it doesn't work. 12 years now you've gone without winning a championship, okay? And we know that, I think it's clear now that most of those championships that you got at the beginning of your career, we can thank the late, great Gene Michael for getting the founding blocks established for you to help get those championships, okay? But you did get 2009, thank you for that. But this strategy, whatever it is, this stupid analytic thing that you do where you treat analytics like it's your Bible, it doesn't work. Or, you know what? There are teams out there that do use analytics and they win championships. But you know what? They use them better than you. Whatever it is in your analytic system, it's either you're using it too much or you're not using it well enough. 12 years without winning a championship, spending billions and billions of dollars for this. Yankee fans deserve better. We sit there, we watch all these games, we have to deal with so much smack from social media. We have all of these, we spend so much time invested in this team for no championship in 12 years. And yeah, I know Cubs fans are like, welcome to the party. But yeah, it's the Cubs. We're the Yankees. There is a certain sort of Yankee syndrome, I guess, Yankee fan syndrome, that we expect championships. And yeah, it's kind of, we're the greatest franchise in the history of sports. New York, we have all this money. We expect more championships. We especially expect more than 0 in 12 years. So, look, it's time for Cashman, I think, to move along, step aside, and that comes at Hal Steinbrenner, okay? And yes, thank you for, getting Clay Holmes, but we still have the same problems here. And it mostly, I think, comes down to your analytic attitude. It's not working. And if you want to get rid of Boone, and yes, I am one of those Yankee fans that think it's time for Aaron Boone to go, but I don't think this is all Aaron Boone's fault. We know he's a puppet. He's a puppet. He is somebody who just takes orders from Cashman. So that's why I think if you think that getting rid of Aaron Boone is going to fix all the problems, no, it's not. It's the only way that you can cut off the head. That's how you fix the problems here. So yes, Boone, I'm sick of hearing his, we're going to be great. This team is, working out its problems. This team is good. I mean, what he said after the wildcard game that everybody's closed the gap on us. What gap? There's no gap. Okay. I mean, it is pathetic, some of the things that he says in press conferences. I'm so sick of seeing him. And yeah, I know second manager ever to reach the postseason in each of his first 4 seasons, all the wins that he's had. Again, if you look at the regular season, he's great. But you know what? For a Yankee fan, none of that matters. It's about what you do in the playoffs. And he has time and time again not succeeded in that. 4 years in a row. I think it's time to go. But yes, I especially would not get rid of him just alone. I would get rid of Cashman too. And move on. Try to get Billy Beane. Beg Theo Epstein. Give him whatever money he wants to come here to New York. I don't know if he would do it. But that's where I would go here. Go Theo, or, I mean, for crying out loud, even Billy Beane, something, anything. Let's just change the mindset. Although it is kind of hypocritical that I just spent minutes rallying on Cashman for his analytic approach and then saying, hey, let's get Billy Beane. But I just want to change, man. This is not working, and we know this. And yes, there are many players on this team that should go. Outside of Judge and Stanton, there's like nobody that I think is a must-have. Almost everybody else on this team, you can put on the block. Gary, it's time to go. And remember, Gary was the reason, I think, outside of, maybe the years we had not winning a championship, Gary was the reason why I think that they wanted to move on from Girardi, because Gary didn't like him, and the Yankees essentially chose Gary over Girardi. All right, fine. If you're going to be that guy, Gary, if you're going to be the reason that your manager gets fired, you better deliver, and he is not. I cannot watch this guy have another game behind the plate again. He is dreadful behind the plate. 23 home runs, that was good. His offense was good this year, but it was not good enough. It was not worth it for all the stupid defensive mistakes that he makes. So I think it's time for him to go there. It's probably time for Luke Voigt to go, even though I don't think it's... I thought he was good in 2020, but obviously a lot of injuries played a toll. They wanted to put Anthony Rizzo in there, which is fine. I think they're probably going to move on from Voit. I want to keep DJ, but man, he really disappointed me here this year. 10 home runs, which was the same number that he had in 2020, but there was 100 more games this year. His OPS dropped 300 points. Gleyber Torres just had a dreadful, dreadful year, and that's another reason why this team has faltered, because we had so much hope in him in 2019. He hit 38 home runs one year, and he has looked pathetic as of late, and I don't know what the problem is there. Gio Urshela, he had a terrible year as well. Thanks for the great catch on the last day of the season, but he's not lived up to it. Rohan Odor was bad. You then look at the outfield, and Joey Gallo, I know that he had a lot of home runs, all that, but he was terrible with the Yankees. He batted 160. But we knew this. We knew that he was a strikeout guy, but the Yankees took a chance on him anyway, and he struck out a lot, which is what you expect. That's what happens when you have a home run and strikeout team. Hey, Yankees, get more contact guys. Get guys who get on base. Get guys who get singles and doubles. Enough with the home run or strikeout mentality. It is killing us. Singles and doubles. That is the way to go. And then Brett Gardner, please, you need to go as well. Thanks for your service, but come on, man. Just stop. Stop. Get out when you're ahead. CC realized when it was time to go. Gardner needs to realize it is time for him to exit stage right. And the starting pitching was fine this year. I thought it had really good moments. Some not great moments, but for the most part, I thought it was solid. My biggest problems were, I guess, Tyon. He did have the ankle injury, but he was a little shaky this year. Kluber had injuries, which I guess we're not surprised by. He did give us the no-hitter, so thank you, but that's probably it for him. And yeah, a couple years ago, we did get Garrett Cole. He was supposed to be the final piece to this team, and he, in the biggest game, let us down. He was awful in the AL wildcard game. Now, he did have a pretty good year. I'm not ready to sit there and say that Garrett Cole should go, that Garrett Cole is a bum, that Garrett Cole should be booed. I think that's ridiculous, because you look at this guy was a contender for the Cy Young. He had 16 wins this year. He had a 3.2 ERA. He was 243 strikeouts. He had a pretty good year, except for the end. And whether that's a hamstring, and I hope that that's a hamstring. I hope that he's able to figure out whatever the problem is. We asked him to come here to be a guy who can help us win big games. And here in the biggest game of the season, he let us down. And there was a problem here late throughout the season. He really struggled. So I hope it's just health. I hope he's okay. Obviously, he has also not been the same since the sticky stuff was banned. So I hope that this is just a temporary thing and that he's able to figure it out. Chapman was way too inconsistent for us this year. I mean, he was third in the AL in saves, and at the beginning of the year, he was incredible. But then, once the sticky stuff went away, he was also, there was so many times where your heart rate went up when Chapman came into a game. Chad Green allowed too many home runs. There were some good guys like Loizica, Holmes, but all in all, you just look at this team and there's just so many problems. Again, outside of Judge and Stanton, those are the only two guys that I feel like we absolutely have to keep. Everybody else, I feel like you can get rid of. Everybody else, I feel like you can make a legitimate argument that it should be traded, we should get somebody else. And I know it might sound ridiculous, but look, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We have tried this now for 4 or 5 years. It has not worked. And unless serious changes are made, this team is going to continue to not go anywhere. This team will continue to falter. This team will continue to not win World Series. And maybe the way they're going, they will not make the playoffs. And that is disgraceful for a team that is spending as much money as the Yankees, for a team with the pedigree of the Yankees, to go 12 years without winning a championship. And not only that, 12 years without going to a championship. It is really, really sad. It is pathetic. And it should be embarrassing. And this should be a wake-up call to the Steinbrenners. If last year wasn't a wake-up call, if this regular season, the inconsistencies of this regular season wasn't a wake-up call, then this game on Tuesday should have been the defining wake-up call that it is time for the Yankees to move into a different direction, to change things, to move on, and hopefully get better in the future. Hopefully the Steinbrenners finally make a change, but I have no confidence that they will. What a disappointing season it was, guys. Again, the talent was there, but they didn't show up. The home run and strikeout mentality kills us. The double plays, the inconsistency, that's what just devastated us. And we don't have a great manager. We have a puppet as a manager, and the general manager has built a bad system. So that is what, in my opinion, has led to this destruction of the Yankees. And what we thought was going to be a dynasty has now turned into not that. What's going to happen next, I honestly have no idea. I just hope that something good comes out of this, but I really don't know. That's it for now, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new to this channel and you like what you see, make sure you subscribe down below. Thank you guys so much for watching my videos all season long, and I will see you next time. Take care and God bless.